Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Radio Dead Air Tech Q&A. You've got questions. We've got guesses. Nash, been doing Radio Dead Air for almost 25 years. But in addition to that, I am also an IT professional. If you have with me as always, my producer, Mike Gearman, who also works in tech. If you have tech questions, you can send those to us at requests@radiodeadair.com. How you doing, Mike?
Not bad. I had an amazing lunch that I made. Sauteed mushrooms, sirloin that I marinated overnight. Fantastic.
That's good to hear. We got questions already, and we have room for more, but we also have some news this week. One that we're not going to get to this week, but we will talk about it briefly too, because it's a rumor. Well, it's kind of a thing right now, but we'll probably have more to talk about next week. Qualcomm has put in is apparently behind the scenes trying to buy out Intel, which
parts of Intel. That's the important bit is parts. They don't want the whole thing.
Yeah. Do they want is the fab or is it?
It's the fab because why would they want the server set portion?
Yeah, Qualcomm wants to buy out Intel's fabrication. I'm not entirely sure that's going to go through because
I see a lot of antitrust issues.
Yeah, a lot of antitrust issues, and also those fabs are in the United States. That would be Arizona. There's a couple others that Intel was working on before they completely shat the bed. So we'll see. I'm not sure Qualcomm. Other companies might be able to purchase them, but I'm not sure Qualcomm will be allowed to. We'll have to talk about that more next week because that just cropped up very soon. Actually, no, that was September 6th. They were going. It was the bigger rumor was that was Wall Street Journal. Yeah, no, yeah. That was the story I sold you. I sent you was older. This is one Qualcomm. No, they want to take over Intel entirely. They want to buy. Oh. They want to buy entirely Intel, which I'm not sure that's going to happen.
I would say that's even more of an antitrust issue than just wanting to buy parts of Intel.
And not just a matter of again, that would be a foreign company purchasing the major American chip designer. I'm not sure that's going to happen. Their fabricator, maybe, but not. Anyway, speaking of takeovers, this is one you may have been tracking if you're interested in, little games and stuff. Flappy Bird. That was back in the 2010s. Remember, for a minute, Flappy Bird was everyone's tremendous obsession?
Yeah, and it made, the guy who came up with it millions of dollars, and he panicked and said, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, he's like, this is fucked. I don't want any part of this shit anymore. And he left. That was Dong Nguyen?
Dongwin.
Dongwin. Thank you.
Nguyen is pronounced basically win.
That's practically Welsh.
I'm sure my coworkers who have that surname will appreciate that statement.
Because you got the letters all in the wick. That's Nguyen. I know it's Chinese. I know it's Vietnamese, but it's Welsh. That's how Welsh works. Letters are all in the wrong places, and you say them wrong. I know. People are going to send me letters. I know. Anyway,
and it's definitely Vietnamese, not Chinese.
Yeah, it's Vietnamese. Yeah. Dong Nguyen created Flappy Bird and is like, no, I want no part of this anymore. So he quit. He dropped the game and he stopped developing it and he stopped it. Well, in recent days, a company has said, hey, Flappy Bird is back. Except there's
there's not really continuity there. They invalidated the original trademark and said, we have this now.
Yeah. So one of the things and this is why trademark defense is one of those things that's companies will pursue it aggressively. This is exactly why. If a trademark is deemed to be abandoned, it can be claimed, and I believe, if I'm not correct, for free by someone else.
Well, I won't say for free, but for the same costs that a trademark is required to you pay.
Registration, yeah. But that's effectively free. That's not like millions of dollars. That's effectively free. It's like whatever fee you have to pay, boom, you have a trademark. And wouldn't you know, number one, the people who have purchased this trademark, and keep in mind, they own the trademark, not any of the copyrights, not any of the patents, none of that stuff, just the trademark. The people who have purchased the trademark, number one, are not making it clear that they are not the original developers. In fact, they are doing everything in their power to obscure the fact that they are the original developers.
Yeah, Win posted on Twitter for the first time since 2017. He hasn't posted there in 7 years.
Yeah.
No, I have no related with their game. I did not sell anything. I also don't support crypto.
Yeah, that's the other thing about
the guys behind it are crypto bros.
Web3, which is just another way of saying crypto and NFT. They have someone managed to dig through. What's their name? From Varun.ch. I'm not familiar with them, but I did look at this. They managed to dig through the revived website because it was built in WordPress. And they were able to dig down through it, and they discovered all of the plans coming up, which is going to be all of this crypto-style monetization and NFT crap and blah, 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 blah. And it's a host of a bunch of people who are notorious for Web3 garbage, and they're just, this is a we would say this was unethical, but you'd have to have ethics in the first place to be concerned with this. They are, in fact, going to make money off of this. Now, I don't know how much money they're going to make off this, but considering the fact that all they had to do was file a new trademark, they're probably going to make a lot of money off this.
Yeah.
Comparatively for a return on investment, it's probably going to be pretty good.
For the effort they put in, yeah, it's probably gonna. I'm not going to do it because I didn't do the original one. I have no interest in it. But
now there is some, again, Wynn does not talk very much publicly about this. He kind of just got to a certain point with Flappy Bird's like, no, I'm done. There is no indication,
and it may well be. He said he took the game off because he didn't intend to write something so addictive.
Yeah,
and he was concerned about people, but I also suspect because he was making $50,000 a day off of it, he just like, I've got enough money now.
I would love to have enough money. That would be nice. I've got enough money now. I'd love to do that. Be like, I have enough money. I'm done. Some people can, in fact, do that.
If I was pulling in $50,000 a day, I'd be like, okay, after 3 months, I'm done. I'm just done.
Yeah. Stream tile didn't update. Hold on, let me fix that. I forget that sometimes. Okay, and under talk show.
Oh, that.
Then we'll just go with that. That's fine. Okay, so there is some talk about the fact that he is in Vietnam. The original developer's in Vietnam. He may not have had the chance to contest the trademark deal because, well,
true,
he's overseas. He would have had to have come over here and taken care of it.
Or hired a lawyer.
Yeah, or hired a lawyer. So that's not known right now, but just understand. And also what I mentioned about the copyright, they don't have the original source code. This is not the same game.
No,
this is just
based on how relatively straightforward the game is, as far as mechanics, it wouldn't be hard to recreate.
There have been tons of Flappy Bird clones. words. There have been tons of Flappy Bird clones over the years. So this is a clone of the original using the original's trademark, even though it doesn't have it. So do not be misled. This is going to be crypto crap. Yay! Is there anything?
It would not surprise me if the app, the game itself, is basically just a crypto app with a game over top of it.
Yeah.
That is burning your phone battery to do crypto stuff while letting you flap.
Understand, if they are not completely transparent up front, that should tell you everything you need to know about them in producing this, and you should be very wary because they are trying to cheat. They are trying to cheat you. So other things that are coming back that you never thought you'd see. 3 Mile Island was shut down not too long ago, a couple of years back. 2019. It's 5 years back. They shuttered 3 Mile Island because it just wasn't economically feasible to keep running it anymore.
Now, I'm going to interject something here. Some of you hearing this may have thought, wait a second, that place melted down. Wasn't it all shut down? No, the parts that had the reactor melt down were shut down, but there were other reactors there.
Yeah, 3 Mile Island was a whole complex. There was one part of it that goofed up. It was not nearly as bad as it has been hyped up to be. The release of radiation was not as large as, but it was still could have gotten way worse. It was really good that nothing worse happened. But they shut it down because it was not, the cost of maintaining it was not worth what it was putting out. Well, guess what? Microsoft has decided it would like to pay to reopen 3 Mile Island and purchase power from them at a discount.
They're going to purchase all the power from it.
All the power. And why?
AI bullshit.
For AI. They are restarting a nuclear reactor that is capable of powering 800,000 homes. That's like what, 1.5 or 1% of the US. It's like 0.5% of the US population because we have 250 million people, 300 million. So 0.3, 0.3% of the population. That could power the homes of 0.3% of the population, and it's all going to go to a data center for AI, now, AI crap.
I'm going to say something that may come across as very cynical. I hope that the company that is selling this power to them signed a contract with Microsoft that says you're paying for this regardless.
For the duration.
For the duration. Even if you decide we're going to stop doing this thing at this data center, you're still on the hook. Maybe not for the whole thing, but for a large chunk of it. Because I suspect the AI bubble is going to burst in the next year or two. And this will look really bad for Microsoft.
I mean, it is going to. But now I personally am not the biggest fan of nuclear power. Yes, I understand it's very safe these days. And we've ironed all the bugs out, and there's still, and it's cheap. Yes, it is in fact pound for pound cleaner than carbon dioxide fossil fuel based releases. Yes. Indeed. However, I am just leery about any technology that all it takes is one screw up and swaths of the planet are uninhabitable for centuries.
So I'm going to say very briefly, I grew up in a town you've been to, I believe, called Aiken,
Savannah
South
River
Carolina.
Plant. Yeah, Savannah River Plant. Yeah.
My father worked there for many years. One day, I come home from school, and I go get the paper out of the little paper thing next to the mailbox. And I grab the mail. And I open up the paper, and it says, radiation leak at Savannah River site. So when my dad comes home, This is a banner headline. Big news. And the next day's paper had banner headline about it. Because we had a morning paper and an evening paper. And I asked my dad about it, how much radiation was released. And he said, turn on the TV, stand 10 feet away from the TV. And when I tell you stop, step back away from the TV. And he counted about 30 seconds and he said, step back. He said, you just got more radiation than was released at the site.
And I should point out, he's talking about CRT televisions that used to be cathode ray tubes, not an LED or something. We're from the ancient times. We're from the Stone Age. We're from the long ago. So, but all in all, environmentally, there are many worse things they could be doing. However, practically, considering we still have fossil fuel plants running in the United States, they're burning. We're slowly phasing out we were phasing out the coal plants until like crypto started buying them to run for crypto.
We still have fossil. Started buying them.
We have fossil fuels running that we could offset just by running this. Even if it's an antique nuclear power plant, it could still, that's enough for 1 million homes. Think of how many tons of CO2 we would not need to burn, and yet we're wasting all that electricity on this crypto garbage.
Garbage.
And when it does, it's not an if, it's when this bubble bursts, because this bubble, there is no way to recoup the investment that has been placed into this. Hence, it is a bubble.
Yes, and they keep dumping more in, hoping they will find some magic technology that will pop out of it, that will go, this made it worth it. And it's not there yet. It may never be there.
Yeah, this is entirely based on some of the most expensive speculation in the history of modern technology. Like incredible. Ed Zitron, you should read him. He keeps very close track of this, and the amount of money necessary to keep OpenAI going, just OpenAI, not all the others, OpenAI would represent the largest single investment of capital into technology in the history of modern tech. So it's crazy, but hey, if the contract keeps 3 Mile Island open after this, maybe we can actually do something good on this. I'm not holding my breath because the entire technology sector has lost its mind. Speaking of the entire technology sector losing, I guess. We talked a while back, and keep in mind, we're going to have an update immediately after I talk about this story because, so earlier this month, you may all have been familiar that Elon Musk and Twitter were banned from Brazil because he refused to abide.
Well, banned from Brazil. I'm going to just say here again, banned from Brazil sounds like the kind of album, the title a rock band would use for an album.
Yeah.
Not a technology company going, I don't want to.
Well, first of all, last week, a curious thing started to happen. Twitter started to come back up in Brazil. And there's a reason.
But yet, the court orders hadn't been lifted.
So, Twitter moved its servers over to a hosting company called Cloudflare.
Yep.
One thing Cloudflare is famous for is resisting DDoS and any sort of attacks that would bring your service offline.
Another thing they're famous for is providing that service to anyone, regardless of how awful a human being they are.
One of the ways they do that is something called a dynamic IP address. Now, most of you are familiar with how an IP address works. You get an IP address, that's where you are on the internet. That's how you're connected to the rest of the internet. You have a number, it's like a phone number, or if you can still relate to it in that way. And normally, most sites have a static IP address that gets resolved via a dynamic name server to www.google or whatever. That's the DNS server that resolves that. That's like a phone book, I guess. Weird way of saying it. What the dynamic IP address does is Cloudflare has a block of IP addresses, and they can shift the servers between those IP addresses to combat denial of service or any other sort of attack. So even though it'll still go to twitter.com, underneath the IP address may have moved. Cloudflare has a way of doing this to still work with the DNS server and all that. It still works out. What
makes it all transparent?
But because Twitter was IP banned in Brazil, their particular IP address was no longer functional. So by moving over to Cloudflare, they no longer had a static IP address, and the ban no longer worked.
Now, Twitter is claiming, we didn't realize that would happen. We were just doing this so our people who could do management on the stuff that we have there could still do their management of the stuff that we didn't mean to give access back. We didn't realize that would happen. Now, I partially believe that in the sense that Elon fired all the smart people.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So it is possible that they just didn't realize, that would happen. It is
just as likely they were trying, considering the motherfucker in charge, they were just as likely to be trying to evade the ban, which had the full Supreme Court had said, no, you're gone until Well, the Brazil approached Cloudflare and said, listen, if you don't stop this, we're going to block you, because you were enabling this ban, and the only way to keep them out is to block all of Cloudflare. So you should fix this. And Cloudflare went, oh, hell no, and immediately filtered Twitter out from the dynamic. Because
Cloudflare, even though I said they do provide internet service to basically the most awful people on the internet, said, we really don't want to have our entire company banned in Brazil as well.
Yeah, we are not taking the hit for fucking Elon. So that happened, and so Twitter went back down again. So as a result of that, they have exhausted every little stupid I'm not touching you ploy they had. Guess what broke today? The news came over. They have capitulated. They are saying they are going to abide by the court's rulings. They are going to block the requested accounts that the Brazilian court asked them to block. They're going to pay the fines. They're going to have a legal representative. They're going to do everything that Musk claimed he would never do for free speech and principle and blah 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 blah. They're going to do it all. They've total. It's a total surrender. And this is not entirely certain that the Supreme Court's going to be like, well, come on back. They still have to work out how they're going to do this. Now, part of this had to
do, remember that Musk has to appoint a representative in the country, which is a Brazilian law. Now, I've said this a lot. I'm going to seg here briefly. There are laws in the U.S. I disagree with. There are laws in other countries I disagree with. However, there's a difference between disagreeing with them and being in that country and just outright ignoring them.
Yeah, that's
ignoring them is going to get you in a lot more trouble a lot faster than at least pretending or looking like you're complying with them. Go, oh, sorry, I don't speak Brazilian very well. I thought it meant this. You may be bullshitting, but the court may give you a little bit of leeway.
So we're not sure. This is the Brazilian Supreme Court still has to deal with this and say they are going to lift the ban and all that. Whatever fees, whatever other requirements the Supreme Court has for Twitter, they're going to have to, work all that out. But yeah, every single thing that Musk said he would not do, he is going to do, and potentially more. So now you may think, why would he do this for Twitter? It is a failing business that he can't manage and is probably going to be propping it up via selling more Tesla stock. Twitter was not quite the biggest issue here. The biggest issue for Elon was Starlink. And because Brazil rightly acknowledged that Starlink and Twitter were both controlled, and SpaceX and Twitter both controlled by Musk, owned by, controlling interest and all that, they grouped them together as the same sort of thing. That's why some of the fines for Twitter were being taken out of SpaceX's bank's account, Starlink's, in Brazil. So I'm pretty sure that this is about unfreezing the SpaceX and the Starlink bank accounts in Brazil, because they realized they were not going to win this. They were not winning it in the court of public appeal. Brazilian Twitter flocked en masse to Blue Sky, which has been going great, actually.
Whether they'll stay when Twitter comes back up, we don't know. I suspect a number of them will, but not necessarily everywhere.
A lot of them, but I do figure some of them will, because Blue Sky is, well, much more pleasant than Twitter. There's no advertising on Blue Sky. There are much better ways of controlling how you interact with people, like the nuclear block option. Oh, on Blue Sky, it's so nice. In case you weren't aware of this, if you block someone on Twitter, everyone else can still see them. So if they replied to you before you blocked them, their shitty reply is still there. So they could be just saying all sorts of horrible things to you. But on Blue Sky, if someone makes one of those, if you block somebody, nobody can see anything they have ever said to you ever again. They can't quote tweet you. They can't do any of that shit. It's all gone. You can there's actually added a feature where if somebody quote tweets you or quote skeets you, there's on Blue Sky, they're called skeets. If someone's quote skeets you, you can detach your skeet from the quote. It goes away. It's beautiful, the amount of control you have to deal with assholes. You can't, pylons don't work as well. You can't derail reply threads. It's so beautiful. Yeah, they're called skeets. Yeah, they're called skeets.
Yes, I forget what the name for videos is. I think it's skids.
Skids, yeah. There's skids and skeets.
Okay, because I'm going to be honest with you. We're weird on Blue Sky.
You will see Alf's penis.
Absolutely.
Alf Hog will happen. Kalan says, thank you for 19 months, almost an entire year. Thank you so much for that resub. I appreciate you a ton.
Really have to question your ability to count time.
I'm very good at counting time. 19 months is almost an entire year on Jupiter. Actually, probably not. I think it's longer on Jupiter. It's like 100 months. Anyway, I'm good at count. All right, that's the news for this week. But don't worry, we have some questions to answer this week, too. We've got some interesting ones. Let's see what we got. This first one comes from Peter L. He writes, I'm having a problem with my current PC. I have a hard disk drive and a solid state drive installed for hard drives, and the motherboard only has room for one SSD, and I'm planning to upgrade this soon. I run my OS off the SSD, and I'm not sure how I'm supposed to go about installing the new SSD when it has the OS. Operating system's Windows 10. I don't know if you need any more details. I've tried looking around, but the advice I'm finding is at best confusing and it's worse trying to sell me dodgy software. Any advice would be appreciated. Okay. Well, Peter, sounds like what you're trying to do is, because you only have the room for the one SSD, trying to put in a bigger SSD, but you don't have any place to put them side by side to transfer things.
Yeah.
And the dodgy software, there's a lot of software out there that is like, we'll help you if you pay us. And if you try to Google search it, it is a pain.
Yeah. So my easiest way, which is not necessarily the same as Nash's easiest way, is to make an image using the appropriate software. of that SSD, and then just apply that image to the new SSD.
Well,
But the
okay,
software-
let's back up to the ability
Sure.
to do that in the first place.
Yes.
First of all, if you are looking for software that will enable you to copy your old system to a new SSD, and the fact you have a hard drive already attached inside the system is very good for this, in fact. You need to make sure you have some space on it, first of all. Whatever size hard drive you have and whatever size SSD you have, make sure you have as much space free on that hard drive as the size of your current SSD. The best
Or an external
free-
SSD that you can, or an external hard drive that you can put stuff on.
The best free way of doing this, that's not going to cost you anything with reputable software, is something called Clonezilla. You're going to need a USB thumb drive to do this. Some free software called Rufus, again, also free. You get Rufus. It's Google it, you can find it. Download that, install it, run Rufus, plug in your USB thumbstick, and next thing you're going to do is you're going to download an image for Clonezilla. Now, what Clonezilla is, it is a Linux-based, don't worry, you're running Windows, it doesn't matter. It's a Linux-based hard drive cloning software. And there are free guides for it that's very easy to follow. What you're going to do is you're going to make an image of Clonezilla. You can download it from their site, a bootable image. Use Rufus to install it to that thumb drive you plugged in. Once you've done that, once it's installed, you're going to boot your system off that thumb drive. And either an external hard drive, or it's probably easier to use the one you have plugged in. So that one's going to be the fastest one. It's a SATA drive, so it's going to be faster than any USB drive, unless you have USB 4. But anyway,
I'm guessing if they have one SSD slot, they don't have USB 4. That's just a guess.
Probably. So you're going to run Clonezilla, clone your current SSD over to your hard drive that you already have in the system, and it will make an image file there. Then you're going to shut it down, take out your current SSD, plug in the new SSD, boot again from that USB stick, and then re-image, take that image file you made and put it on the new SSD. And remember, you want to clone the entire drive, including the partitions that are already on it, because there are hidden partitions regarding boot and UEFI.
But the OS uses that you can't, that you don't do stuff with.
So if you want to,
I'm going to interject something here. Some people might say, oh, well, you can do this with Windows software. Yes and no. Windows software that does this, when you put it on the new SSD, will make all your partitions the same size, which means you didn't get a bigger SSD. You just got blank space on an SSD that you can't utilize right now.
Clonezilla will enable you to resize the partition to match the new drive. So it's very powerful software. Google it, look up some videos, because we could tell you here, but it's much easier for you to follow a step-by-step guide. It's absolutely free, doesn't cost you a dime. Anyone who tries to sell you Clonezilla is lying, and they're pulling a scam, because it's free. If you need some other help with the partition, Gparted is also free software for along the same lines. It will help you out with that as well. That's what you need. So all you'll really need is that you may not already have is a USB thumbstick.
Yeah.
That's it.
Now, I will say you may run into some issues if you are encrypting the drive. I would decrypt it before doing all this.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm guessing you're not.
Yeah, and turn off BitLocker. Before you never clone a drive from Windows with BitLocker on it. You will cause so many issues for yourself. And that includes on the hard drive as well, because Windows controls that. And if you move the installation, you can turn it back on afterwards, but BitLocker is so finicky. I would not screw with it. Turn it off, copy it over, turn it back on when you're done. Best way of doing it. If you need anything else, let us know. We'll help you out with it. But that's the best way of doing it. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything else. It's open source software, and it works very well. So I mean, this it's been around for a while. There are some paid ones you can use as well. I use one called Acronis for Windows because I don't like having to boot into another time every time I want to make a backup. So I use one called Acronis.
I've used Acronis for both work and home.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But if you don't want to pay any extra money, Clonezilla and Gparted, they'll do the job. All right, next up, this is for Hey Nash and Mike. Just a quick one for an I told you so. Is it safe to charge things using a USB port on my laptop, like my phone or a power bank or something? I said it was fine, but my friend at work told me you can break your computer like that, and that sounded dumb to me. Thanks, Terry.
Okay, so in general, yes, you absolutely can. The exceptions to this, I would say, is on the dodgier end of hardware.
Yeah.
But there's another. Oh, no, go ahead. You go ahead. I'll tell the other exception in a minute.
USB provides 5-volt power over the USB spec. Now, how much 5-volt power is entirely dependent on which version of USB you're using. The first one was only 100 to 250 milliamps. USB 2 got all the way up to 1 amp. USB 3 can actually move to, I believe, over USB 3 over USB-C can actually move to 3 amps. Yep. So the more amperage, think about
and USB-C power delivery port can do 45 or 48 volts, 5 amps. But
that's a special port. Mm-hmm. So USB can deliver 5-volt power quite effectively. The reason it might, and if we're talking about something like your phone or a power bank or most hardware that you would use that would require a charge, a Kindle, a tablet, something like that, most cases, that's no problem.
I might be slow.
Yeah.
For example, if I charge my phone off my computer here, it charges very slowly. So I have a wall wart that's plugged into the same strip as the computer, and I just charge off that because it can provide a greater amount of current.
Yeah, sometimes motherboards, while the standard for USB 3 can provide a high level, the motherboard can be a limiting factor. The motherboard might not be able to provide that much power across any given port. All the spec requires is that it enables you to run certain devices through that spec, but charging spec can go considerably higher. Motherboards are not required to always follow charging spec, however. So power delivery on that might not equal the upper limits.
Yeah. So that's a check your manual sort of thing if they list it, which sometimes they don't. Now, other consideration, because you said at work, I'm going to bring up the work consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on where you work, there may be intrusion detection software on your computer. This is a common thing in corporate environments, and it is basically mandatory in government environments. And one of the things intrusion detection software does is detect unauthorized devices. Unauthorized devices can be a very broad or a very narrow category, depending on what they've set up. For example, most mice not show up as an unauthorized device because it's a mouse. They can't guarantee how often, given how often they break, that you're going to buy the same model mouse for the next 5 years. Similar to keyboards. But a lot of places say, oh, we don't want you plugging your phone in because that's actually a little mini computer and it could, possibly load stuff on there that we just don't want. And so we have, for example, the rule that you can't, even if we gave you the phone for work, you can't charge it on your computer. That counts as intrusion detection. And what happens to the user, in my case, is we shut off your account automatically. I'm not even involved in the shut off. I'm involved in tracking the person down and saying, really? Again? The
So
record,
that's
I'm not going to say who. The record is 8.
the big, however,
In his defense, he had a small child who wanted to charge a device repeatedly.
now where it starts getting tricky is where we get past what would be accepted, everyday consumer electronics. Like, I mean, anything up to like a game controller or whatnot is fine. But it gets like, number one, I would, and this is having used them in the past, I would never, ever, ever, ever charge an e-cig off a computer's USB port.
Yeah, because it might try to draw more power, more current than the port will allow.
There is no real regulation or specification aside from the USB spec. Those come out so fast and so furious, and some are a little fly by night, that I would never ever charge one off a computer USB port. I would always use some sort of external charger for that, separate, that could not harm my computer. Pretty much any sort of device that, a little bit Temu, a little bit AliExpress, that seems, I don't know, like a little portable fan or something that have a battery in it. Now, honestly, the batteries are not the issue. It's always the charging mechanism built into the device. That's where it gets tricky. Hi, Charlie. He's in the background.
Now, I'm going to take it back to the intrusion technique. Because this is also true. If the device itself does nothing other than draw power, probably won't show up on intrusion detection. But if there's any sort of computing circuitry, it will.
That's so it's a yes with an asterisk, I guess. So most things will not damage your computer. They just won't charge very fast. That's the only drawback is you're not going to get as efficient charging as you could directly from a wall. Because
the best device I ever saw a coworker plug into their computer that didn't trigger anything. He had a little single soda can cooling unit that he could plug into his computer, and it would keep the soda cooler for like an hour or two longer because it was just, pulling the heat from a little pad on the bottom.
Those weird devices like that, I always find they're sketchy plugging into a computer. I'm always a little leery of it because even off Amazon. All right, we got one more. Let's see. This is from Nick J. Nash and Mike and Floofs. I recently just switched from an air cooler to a Thermalright all-in-one water cooler because the prices were just too good. Now I'm noticing the temperatures on my VRM and overall system temperatures are higher than they were previously, and I'm guessing it's because there's no air blowing over them at the CPU socket anymore. I wanted to use this cooler for higher precision boost overdrive with my 5950X, but if the VRM overheats, that'll defeat the purpose. Is there any good way to get air back to the socket again? I know I could jury rig something, but I wanted something better than that. Thank you, Nick J. Okay, well, let me break down for everybody what we're talking about here while we're talking about it. The VRMs are the voltage regulation. What does M stand for?
Module, I think.
Module. These CPUs these days can draw a lot of power, especially if you're Intel. They can draw 200, 300 watts. And in order to draw that power safely and provide it to the CPU, there are components on the motherboard called VRM, voltage regulation modules. They are, not only do they deliver power to the CPU, they do it in such a way that there's no ripple, there's no twitch. It is a constant, steady power delivery. Whatever the CPU requests, it gets delivered. In most cases, especially if you're not overclocking in the slightest, or if you're well below specifications for your CPU, VRMs don't ever really get taxed too hard. No. In fact, if you look at, say, AMD 520A or 620A or any motherboard or Intel's anything below a Z where they don't have overclocking built into those chips, You'll notice sometimes they won't even have heat sinks on the VRMs because they don't need it. It's way well below specification. But as they draw more power, those VRMs can heat up. And as they heat up, they can potentially, if they get too hot, they stop being able to deliver power efficiently. If one of the things motherboards are designed for is to have air moving across those VRMs. They assume that your system is going to be pulling air across them. Where the issue gets a little weird is all-in-one liquid coolers, most of them. Some of them have air coolers built in to cover this issue, but most of them are just a pump on a heat sink or a water block that screw right to your CPU, and that's it. There's no fans there anymore. That means there's no fan blowing air at any of the components around your CPU socket anymore. And if you don't have enough front and rear cooling, then on the computer, just blowing air through, that can be a problem. And that it becomes sort of a counterintuitive exercise. If you get the all-in-one liquid cooling to have more efficient water cooling so you could boost your CPU higher, but because it's not blowing air anymore, the VRMs overheat and it can't provide the power, then you might be goofing. I mean, you might screw yourself up. This can happen. Now, this is not, I assume you've already, Nick, if you're watching, I assume you've already done some tests to see if this is causing a deleterious effect to your overclocking, if it's getting in the way of precision boost overdrive, and you're not getting the speed you were looking for. I'm assuming that because if you're doing this, I presume you know what you're doing and you know what you're looking for. You know what sort of speeds you want to get out of this. That's on me. If not, let me know. Message me or whatever. If, however, I'm considering you mentioned Thermal Right, those are like $50, $60 all-in-one water coolers. Good price on them. Excellent price on them. But I assume you're trying to keep under a budget here. You're worried about money. There are options to mount additional fans. Some of them are motherboard specific. Some of them are generic. There is a generic one. There's an easy generic one and a slightly more, take a little bit more work generic one. The first generic one comes from a company called Silverstone. Let me bring it up here on the screen. It is the Silverstone Technology FD P01 VRM cooling adapter bracket. Let's put it on the screen. Whoop, there it is. Now, all this is a piece of metal, bent metal with holes in it. What this is designed to do is this is designed to mount, and I think someone has a picture of it down here in the reviews, well, here's a picture right there. It's designed to, most cases, have an exhaust fan on the back, either a 120 or 140 millimeter fan at the back of the case. What this is designed to do is it's designed to use those same mounting holes in front of your exhaust fan and allow you to mount either an 80 millimeter fan or two 60 millimeter fans to directly blow air straight down on the VRM to cool it. It's a little clunky, but it does work. I'm
reading, by the way, no. Sorry, my bad. Never mind.
Yeah.
It directly mounts onto a 120 fan and you put 80 millimeter fans on it. I was misreading this.
A 120 or a 140. It'll fit both. So essentially what you're doing is you're going to be adding extra fans specifically to cool your VRM. And you do it in such a way that it's not as clunky as you might think. However, here's the downside. I assumed you're trying to save some money. This is $20 fucking dollars, and I don't know if you have Prime or not, so I don't know what your shipping will be like. $20 for a little bent piece of metal. That doesn't seem like a good deal to me.
And then you still gotta buy a fan or two for it.
Yeah. There is Oh, JM Share, thank you for the resub. Yeah, it's almost an entire year. 80 months. It's almost one entire year. Thank you so much. So the other option is you can get this one. This is on Thingiverse, which is a place where people share 3D print designs for free. This one is listed under generic VRM fan bracket. It does the exact same thing as that Silverstone one, only it's number one, the design is free. And you can print it in any color you like. And you just do it via 3D printer. Now, if you don't have access to a 3D printer, there are 3D printing services. Let's see. Here's which one was I used before? Craft Cloud is the one I use. Craft Cloud 3D. What they do is they will look up tons of people who offer a 3D printing service. Get off my screen. Go away. Stop it. Tons and tons of people that will offer 3D printing services. And you can they all have bids, and they say how much this would cost. Considering it's such a tiny piece, I'm pretty sure you can get this printed for $10 or less, including shipping, which is probably the best way to go here. And some people are mentioning that locally you might have your library might have a maker space that gives you access to a 3D printer, which would allow you to make a 3D print. I don't know how much they charge for that. This is, to me personally, the better option because, number one, this only comes in black. So if you care about what your system looks like and you don't want to break out the spray paint, this thing only comes in black. And I feel like it's overpriced at $20 for a bent piece of metal. That seems a little weird to me. This feels like a better option. Not only is it generic, it allows you to mount multiple different sizes of fans, and this one it's very specific in where the 80 millimeter fan is pointed, and the 60 millimeter fans are in specific places. This you might be able to get away with just one small fan pointed in the right place, or you can add two, or depending on how much space you have, you could put I think this could do up to 120 millimeter fan over your VRMs if you wanted to, depending on the space you have available in there.
Space and, of course. Now, I will say in the 60 to 80 millimeter fans, you can get a set of two for like $19 or less.
Yeah. The really good ones, of course.
Yeah, you can get a Noctua fan in 60 millimeters for $15.
Yeah, the Noctua ones are nice because they're quieter. The only downside is they're brown. I don't know why Noctua is obsessed with brown, but they do work better. And they're brown. But those are your options there. But if you want the easier option, and considering I was trying to give you the cheapest option possible, like, again, considering you only maybe spent $60 on this all-in-one cooler, it seems a little weird to spend $60 on all-in-one liquid cooler and then $20 on a bent piece of metal. So I'm trying to give you the different options. But if you just you don't want to mess with anything, you just want no fuss, no muss. This is the FDB FDP01 VRM cooling bracket adapter. So
and by the way, if that somehow is not still providing enough cooling, you can also slap a couple heat sinks on top of the VRM and see if that assists as well. You just to pull the heat off so the fan can get to it better. That's
all if the motherboard doesn't already have them, because a lot of the better, like an X570 board or even a B550.
I tossed it out there in case his board does not have that.
It's possible. All right, let me double check, see if we got anything else in tonight. Nope, that's going to do it for us this week. All right, folks. We'll be back next Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you have tech questions for us, by all means, send those along to requests@radio.air.com, or you can put them in the when this goes up on YouTube, you can put them in the comments there. I do check those as well. Otherwise, for Mike and myself, we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone. Good night.